I'm feeling very honored to share the stage with two great personalities here. Um, um, so we'll talk about more in terms of use cases, in terms of implementations, and all of that. But I really wanted to kind of begin with one common theme that we just talked about, right? The pace of innovation, right? The pace of innovation that happened in the last 2.5 years, and the way it is happening, right? What you heard yesterday may not be true, as you wake up this morning. That's the pace of innovation. Every morning or every month, there are at least 5 to 7 new acronyms that get thrown at us, right? So RAG and enterprise RAG and agentic and ACP and A2A and MCP. I don't know what God knows what comes every morning. It's incredible time to live in. Do you agree? Yeah. It's incredible that we are the generation that is probably shaping the future of everything for us. So to both of you, actually, you are implementing these AI technologies, and you are consulting to the world's largest organizations. You've seen the Philippines as well as the global landscape. How do you both look at the pace of innovation? That's my first question. And second question is more geared towards the Philippines is, what type of use cases are you seeing that are more prominently customers are talking to and you are advising as well as you are implementing? And, how do you see difference between Philippines and global landscape? What's working here or what's getting asked over here versus what do you see across the world? So there are 3 questions, but do your best to kind of manage that.
How? Thank
You want to...
I. Am I audible?
Yeah, now you are audible.
Sir, are they still audible?
Hello? You want to use this one?
Or this one? Hello. Yeah. Thank you. And 3 questions. I hope I remember all of them. So good morning to all of you. I think the first question that you asked about the pace, right? I think clearly the pace has been uneven. One thing I would say that last 2 years, there has been a lot of experimentation, and some of it that you also shared in the earlier plenary, Abhijit, very, very resonated with what I have been experiencing. Based on our research and what we have seen, only 20% of the organization have actually taken AI, Gen AI to scale. A lot of them have been into this, we call it a trap of micro productivity. So essentially, you have a range of pilots, a bit of disconnected pilots that stay, and some of them scale. So I guess there has been a lot of hype, and there was a lot of hype when ChatGPT and OpenAI launched, and then a lot of pilots and experimentation started. The scaling has been uneven, and it is picking up. Some of the organizations are doing it well. Some of them are still in the pilot phase. So that is the first part that you asked. Second is on the use cases. In Southeast Asia and Philippines, what I have seen, some of the earlier use cases have been on the customer-facing applications, on hyper-personalization, on the AI-powered contact center assistance, and as well as the sales co-pilot, the relationship manager co-pilot that we have seen being used and deployed as well. And then the second one that I am seeing picking up is also on the back office automation, like something that I saw also earlier on the procurement, and how do we redesign the workflows in the back office leveraging Gen AI. And the final is, slowly it is picking up, is more about the augmenting of the workflows through code generation and the document generation and so on.
You said code generation.
Code.
Okay, code generation.
Code generation.
Okay.
So these are some of the use cases, but of course the starting point has been on the customer facing first, moving on to the back office automation.
Okay, and on the customer facing front, have you seen particularly on the consumer end or on the agent side, or both?
On both. For the financial services, I have seen more on the we call it relationship manager, the distribution
side, right?
Some very, very well documented case examples, not only at the POC scale, but at a scale level. Some of the leading banks here have used that already. So definitely huge scope of leveraging Gen AI beyond the consumer facing, because hyper-personalization was the first thing that came to mind when Gen AI came. Right? Like a lot of people said, oh, we can redesign the campaign creatives and campaign scripts can be regenerated. So that was one of the first one that everyone experimented on. How much it has scaled, as I mentioned, 1 in every 5 have scaled it. So it is still a huge gap. Same goes for the agents one, where you see the co-pilot being deployed. I guess you and the speaker earlier before you talk about agenticai, which will come later, but I think currently a lot of co-pilots is what I have been seeing.
Understood. Claire?
Yeah. This one. Okay, good morning, everybody. Before I answer the question, I wanted to show you how good AI is. We all look so much better on the pictures instead of the one in front of you. But not any different, not materially different from what Anshu has discussed, right? From a pace of innovation, we got to be very cognizant about what's real and what's hype. From an implementation perspective, I'll tell you that the most prevalent use cases that we're seeing today is actually AI-powered customer support tools. That may be for both quality analytics, and then the other side is obviously efficiency, productivity. Well over 60 to 70% of use cases are on productivity. Whether that may be completing a certain task faster or resolving a customer concern in a much sooner timeline than what it was before. So that's well over 70%, 60 to 70% of use cases. From an analytics quality perspective, that's second in the list. You're going to look at self-containment. Now being up to 20% ROI, obviously quality metrics, TNP, NPS, CSAT, some even up to as high as 70% from an ROI perspective. And then 20 to 25%, sometimes 30% on productivity and efficiency. I'll give you a very succinct example, and you ask this, whether it's in-facing into the organization or to the end consumers. I'd say it's both. Concentric services both global and local markets, so I can do a fairly objective comparison. In most of these cases, it's both. So, for example, in Concentrics, gone are the days that we actually do quality call evaluation by humans. Now it's not done that way. We have an IX Insights tool that we developed. It sits on the IX Hero Suite that's outside there in the booth. You're going to see it later. But that tool listens to 100% of all the transactions. It provides quality insights on the call driver, the handle, customer sentiment, and even coach agent real time. Wow. So the improvement is not post facto, it's now. So that's how fast the ROI is. And those are, most prevalent use cases. The second piece is hyper-personalization, whether that's, offerings, discounts based on trended likes, browsing history. But the adoption of that is much slower because it requires a lot of mastery for domain niches.
So you are getting into that. So, and thanks for bringing that one. But I think, both of you shared that there is quite a bit experiments that have gone. There is quite a bit excitement out there. You see the promising nature of AI implementation, both on the consumer or the customer side, as well as the employee side or in-house side as well. But both of you also mentioned the speed of, while the pace of innovation is much faster, speed of implementation is much slower, right? So let's quickly talk about that. What do you think is holding the organizations back in terms of getting that speed in terms of implementation? What leadership, commitments are needed, or what organizational changes are needed, if at all there are any? Where the readiness is lacking, if at all it is lacking. So, both of you, if you could share your perspective on that.
Sure. And thank you. I think one of the I'll start with the key point here is the AI adoption. It is not a technology project. It is a business transformation. I think that is the first realization that needs to happen. Is it is not just a tech adoption as opposed to the whole process redesign and the transformation agenda. And that is where the organization has to look beyond it as an IT or a data project. And that is where the leadership comes very important. So when I say leadership, one of the things in the AI transformation which is completely non-negotiable is having a strong C-suite sponsorship on this. When I say C-suite sponsorship, it doesn't mean that they just fund it, but they need to own the AI agenda. And that is where I've seen some of the big organizations who are really invested in owning this agenda from the top are actually able to scale it well. Second thing, I think apart from leadership, I'll also talk about the culture. I guess the culture of encouraging experimentation in the firm so that it's okay to fail fast. I think because you are trying and different experimentation and making sure these pilots are connected to a strategic objective so that people are not afraid to try more. I think that is one thing I will add. And finally, also on the operating model part, because there is a run the business stream and there's a change the business stream. So how are you building a cross-functional squads where you have folks from AI, from data, from risk governance, from the business side, all working together to deploy transformation at scale. So I would say culture, leadership, op model, all three needs to be looked at when we are looking into AI transformation. And it's an opportunity, and it's also the reason what is holding back some of the firms which has a lot big legacy workflow. So one thing I would add before closing in is, it's not only about putting an AI layer on top of a legacy workflow. That would have worked before in the AI ML days when you have a model. This is not only about optimizing certain steps, you have to redesign the whole workflow.
Correct.
And that is how you will see the transformation happen.
I picked up a couple of points from your conversation. One is literally a quote-worthy thing which I noted here is that AI is not a tech transformation; it is a business transformation. That's a profound statement there itself. The second thing you just talked about is that and Gartner also came up with a term called AI washing. Means that people are just slapping AI on anything and everything without really thinking about it, right? What you just said, that you can't put AI layer on your legacy. You need to really rethink your workflows, or what we call it as reimagine your services, your workflows, your operations. And that's again, I guess we are getting aligned there. So that's really cool. Thank you so much on that. Claire, how do you see this?
I'll talk about themes where I think it works well and when it doesn't. The first theme that we're seeing, and this is practical because we implement this and we use this at the same time on a daily basis. The first theme is that when transformation or intelligent automation is done and driven by a purpose, it actually sticks. So it shouldn't be based on trend. Like if we have clients where, the other bank is already doing this, so we should. And, they'll slap an AI or a technology and they're thinking that it's going to gain them the results and the return of investments that they want. But it's not really that way. There's an Everest study that says 73% of the companies that actually embark on this journey fail to capture the business value that they wanted because of the lackingness of clear strategies and goals. So it cannot be based on trend. It has to be based on purpose. What are you trying to solve for? What meaning do you want to make in terms of your customer, your end users, depending on the industry that you serve? The second piece is context matters, right? The data tells you a story. Every industry has a different language, different regulation, different customer expectation. And None of that would be solved by your technology if you don't know those by heart. You will not be able to create a practical solution, and only practical solutions stick. Only practical solutions actually give you ROI. So when they start in that journey and they don't see the ROI in 3 to 6 months, they'll back off and they say, it's not an investment we want to continue to do. And that's, I think, another misconception, people thinking that it's automatic, that tomorrow you get the gains. And then the third piece I'd say, which is as equally important, is tech is only part of the solution. It is a huge part of the solution, not to say it's not, right? But you gotta keep humans in the loop. And David talked about that, the observability. Sometime down the line, you're going to have thousands and thousands of agents acting on your behalf, deciding, problem solving, especially in emotional and complex moments. You need humans in the loop. You can't separate them if you want a scalable and an efficient operations. So those are the themes that I'm seeing to be both successful and common pitfalls.
Okay. So in fact, I wanted to build on that and double click a little bit on that, Claire, sticking with you. You and your organizations have done very large implementation. Particularly, you guys are the master in the CX transformation. You've done a lot of that, right? So tell us a little bit more about, you kind of gave us the themes, but if you can just double click on some of these and tell us a little bit more about what do you think has worked for some of the successful organizations, especially implementing the GenAI technology? And what are some of the pitfalls that they should or must avoid? Maybe a couple of.
Okay. I think the first one is the quality of the data that you feed the model. That's very important. And we all think that because it's data, it's compatible. It should work. AI is not plug and play.
Yeah.
Transformation is not plug and play. 8 out of 10 times it will fail because you fed it bad data, right? And it's bound to give you inaccurate and skewed results. Just as an example, last year we looked at about 200 knowledge bases in Concentrix. None of them were fit for Gen AI. They were fit for RPAs and any other old technology, but not for Gen AI. So that's the first thing. The second piece that I'd say is choosing the right technology. People think because it's sexy, you implement it and you have different departments using different AI tools, and then here you are, you're trying to string it all together and it becomes very clunky.
Yeah.
So choosing the right technology that integrates seamlessly with existing infrastructure, which is obviously less costly and less burdensome, is second key. And I'd say the third one, which people most commonly overlook, is governance. Nobody's really accountable for what metric they're looking for. They just think, because it's AI, you put it in there, it's going to spit out the results. Nobody has to drive it, nobody has to be held accountable for it, but the governance and the use case value for your people, your business, your customers is the most important third thing that I think.
Excellent. I think data is a very common theme that we are hearing everywhere. Governance is super critical, super important, but that's one of the also reasons why organizations are a little slow in getting the pace at that, because a lot of things are coming in that space that organizations are still figuring it out. One of the key things that you mentioned is about data integrations. So I'll give you just one quick example. As we work with some of the largest organizations now, Microsoft, AWS, integrations is very core strength, I would say. A lot of companies can do integration just at the API level. We go much deeper in that one. And just to give an example, Jira, for example, application, right, can give you 137 fields. But do you need all of them, right? And how do you figure out which 24 fields are the real most important? And more importantly, when you give that now information to an AI, LLM, you just can't pass that just as is, right? There is a way to tune that data and pass it so that you get answers or meaningful outcomes that you can get. So, and that applies to every system that is today out existing there where your knowledge, your data resides in. So great points there, Claire. Thank you so much. Anshu, I wanted to turn it to you with one last question here. Say you consult global organizations, you consult companies over here. What separates the successful companies or companies who have successfully adopted AI, or you see that, yes, they are on a very succeeding path. versus those who are not really and they're struggling? What separates them? And second question is, where do you see a white space for Gen AI adoption, particularly in the Philippines market? If you could touch on that.
Thank you. And great question. I mean, basically, what winners do versus what
Correct.
those who are laggards don't do. I think one thing that we have seen, and even based on what we have been advising and seeing across, is the winners or those who are scaling in Gen AI, they are betting the fewer larger bets as opposed to a dozen of scattered pilots.
Yeah. Rather than going for 3,000 use cases, pick those three use cases.
So that is the one thing I would absolutely say, that what winners are doing, they are identifying the big bets, few of them, and then going laser focus on those end to end. Second thing would be, I think I already mentioned, it's not about optimizing the small steps in the current workflow, rather than they are just, it's called zero-based design. So basically completely redesigning the flow and then designing it around AI rather than retrofitting AI for one of the steps.
Yeah.
So that is second. Third would be risk and compliance is not an afterthought. This is something that is part of the build process, and they are taken along. Because one of the things here in Southeast Asia, or actually in Asia, you see the regulatory landscape is very different in different markets, and you cannot build something and then think about applying regulatory landscape there. And that is where the risk and compliance and the governance, they start thinking about it at the start of the build. And the final thing I would say is the cross-functional squads. I guess just having that transformation agenda run separately from the BAU, that's absolutely important, so that they have the freedom to into the flows and what is working, what is not, and have a very objective view of what needs to be changed. And final thing is the talent. So they have they are bold in identifying the redundancy and also identifying the new skills that are needed. For example, the roles in the AI ethics or the roles of prompt engineers. So you have to invest in these new capabilities and identifying the redundancies or the upskilling needs of your organization. So these are the few themes that we have seen the key leaders in AI transformation are doing. And your second question was
just a white space, like where you see more opportunities.
Absolutely, in the next 12 to 18 months, I would say agenticai. Definitely picking up a lot of murmur around this, but I would say it needs to translate from the experimentation to the actual process redesign. So agenticai definitely one. Second, I would say is your data monetization. So one thing is, like, because of Gen AI, you have a lot of structured and unstructured data, and people are realizing that there's a lot of data that was not previously used is of use for them.
Right.
So which is where this whole identifying their data sets and going to the monetization of that is something that is definitely a white space. And final, I would say, is the AI transformation by looking into the separate transformation office or separate transformation agenda, which is separated from your BAU, making sure they can drive the end-to-end transformation for AI across your business functions. So these three, at least in Southeast Asia, I would say definitely a white space. People are looking into it, and it will only grow.
Excellent. I would love more. I invite all of you to connect with Anshu and Claire. They have a lot to share, a lot to talk about. I'm sure you must have taken some notes on this one. Wish I had time to take the notes, but I think two things that stood or I'm keeping in my mind is that, you don't want to just slap AI on everything as, let's say, you need to have a purpose, right? Don't go behind the trend. Purpose is more important so that you have a focused agenda on that one. And it's not a tech transformation. Even if you decide that, I'm going to go with a purpose and all of that, it's not just a tech transformation. You need to have a business transformation mindset. So really, it's time to reimagine your work, your services, and your processes for a better future for a better enterprise. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Anshu. Thank you so much, Claire. Thank you so much, audience.